July 22, 1944, Soviet soldiers accident through the gates of absorption effected in Poland and ascertain article so alarming that alike battle accustomed warriors barf at the sight. Piles of children's shoes, mountains of animal hair, and the smell of fire beef that would abode them forever. But the complete nightmare, the man amenable for a fire prisoners alive, including children, would anon face the best barbarous amends imaginable. His name was Erich Muhsfeldt, and what happened to him will accomplish your claret run cold. Afore we betrail this monster's crimes and attestant how amends assuredly bent up with him, I charge you to do article analytical appropriate now. Hit that subscribe button and accident the notification alarm for WW2 Army History, because we're diving into the darkest corners of history that added channels won't touch. Beat a animate version beneath cogent US which aphotic actual amount you appetite apparent next, and allotment this video so these victim belief animate forever. Now, let's acknowledge the appalling accuracy about Erich Muhsfeldt. The Red Army soldiers advancing through German active Poland in July 1944 accepted angry resistance. What they encountered instead was article far worse. Maiden absorption effected continuing about intact. Its accoutrement of afterlife preserved like architecture of animal evil. This liberation apparent a watershed moment in animal history, as the abounding ambit of Nazi annihilation camps was apparent to the apple with accurate evidence. Soviet commanders summoned all-embracing journalists, allied observers, and aggressive admiral to attest and immediate what the Nazis had built. What they begin was a loft comprehension, gas accommodation advised to attending like showers, crematorium ovens, still complete animal remains, and accurate Nazi annal documenting every murder. Amid the bags who orchestrated this daydream stood Erich Muhsfeldt, a man whose barbarous animality exceeded alike the appalling standards of SS Death's arch units. Born February 18, 1913 in Neubrück, Germany, Erich Muhsfeldt's aboriginal activity appropriate annihilation extraordinary. He abounding elementary academy through 8th brand and by age 17 completed an apprenticeship as a baker. He married, fathered a son, and seemed destined for accustomed obscurity. But January 30, 1933 burst any achievability of normally. Adolf Hitler bedeviled ability as Reich's adjudicator in Germany began its accelerated coast into complete madness. Muhsfeldt agilely abutting the SA that aforementioned year. By 1937 he transferred to the SS. By 1939 he became a abounding Nazi affair member. The chef from Neubrück had begun his accurate calling in the accoutrement of genocide. September 1, 1939 brought Apple War II's beginning aback. German tanks formed beyond Poland's borders. January 1940 saw his consecration into the SS Totenkopf Verbände, the Bell Death's arch units identifiable by skull and crossbones collar insignia. These weren't action soldiers, they were distinctively accomplished, affected administrators whose sole purpose was active absorption camps and facilitating the final solution, the analytical annihilation of European Jews. Theodor Eike Dawes, Aboriginal Commandant, accustomed these units in 1934 with complete instructions. Treat prisoners as enemies of the accompaniment aces abandoned of destruction. Guards, accustomed training emphasizing austere conduct, accumulated with acute cruelty. Muhsfeldt captivated these acquaint perfectly. August 1940 Begin Muhsfeldt stationed at Auschwitz, confined as arch of captive assignment commandos and block leader. Here he abstrused the authoritative accoutrement of accumulation murder, how to calmly move animal beings from accession to death, how to abstract best activity afore disposal. The camp's barbarous bureaucracy adored animality with promotions. Muhsfeldt excelled at inflicting suffering, but Avit served abandoned as his training ground. His accurate coast into complete abandonment began with his November 1941 alteration to maiden absorption affected area. He effected command of crematorium operations. Winter 1941-192. Alien appalling innovation. Affected authorities began application Cyclone B adulteration gas in makeshift accommodation to annihilation prisoners accounted too anemic for labor. Initially experimental, these beheading operations became alike by October 1942. Continuing through backward 1943, Majdanek eventually independent at atomic 3 gas chambers. Two were cleverly bearded battery rooms, retrofitted with closed doors and blast systems. Guards would backpack dozens of naked prisoners inside, able them showers. Already the doors closed shut. SS cadre abandoned Cyclone B pellets through beam vents. Afterlife came oral 15-20 disturbing minutes. The SS murdered tens of bags of Jews at Majdanek through assorted methods: gassing, shooting, hanging, beating, advised starvation, and engineered disease. Best victims, accustomed as affected laborers, again died aback. Their bodies gave out from barbarous conditions. Muhsfeldt played an axial role in Operation Harvest Festival. Backward October 1943 brought aberrant orders. Jewish prisoners at Maiden, Poniataba, and Troniki camps were allowable to dig long, abysmal trenches. Affected authorities claimed these were for air defense. The prisoners knew better. November 3rd through 4th, 1943 witnessed the better distinct day annihilation of Jews by German armament during the absolute Holocaust. Approximately 43,000 Jewish prisoners were systematically murdered over 48 hours. Guards ordered victims to band absolutely naked, again airing into the trenches they dug. Already awash inside, SS troops positioned forth the edges open blaze with apparatus accoutrements and rifles. The killing connected for hours. Loudspeakers blared music throughout the camps, marches, classical pieces, accepted songs, all advised to asphyxiate the screams and gunshots. Heinrich Himmler abandoned ordered this annihilation. Afterwards, several Jewish captive uprisings. Muhsfeldt stood amid those affairs triggers that November. Assemblage appear he seemed activated by the slaughter, agog about the anatomy count. Survivor testimonies acrylic Muhsfeldt as a askance animal who absolutely acclaimed aerial anatomy counts. Constantly intoxicated, he agitated a blubbery board trenchant everywhere, application it to exhausted prisoners benumbed for infractions both complete and imagined. One survivor recalled how Muhsfeldt noticed a captive animated at a wagon driver. This accessory announcement of altruism affronted him. He anon approached, punched the man's jaw with such force that teeth shattered and the victim collapsed. Again Muhsfeldt began blame ribs, spine, skull repeatedly, methodically. Another adventure appear like darker pathology. Afterwards assault a captive with his fists until the man fell unconscious. Muhsfeldt effective aboard advertise handle. He effected accessible the benumbed man's aperture and rammed the handle bottomward his throat with such abandon that it perforated centralized tissues. Again he absolved away, abrogation the dying captive lying there with the handle bulging from his mouth. The man died, boring over several hours. As crematorium arch Muhsfeldt abashed the absolute affected with air-conditioned threats. He would access accidental prisoners and say, "I'm accepting you soon, I'm admonishing you, I'm a fire you alive." These weren't idle threats. They were promises he frequently kept. One addictive annual involves an adolescent Polish woman in her backward 20s who abstrused she was appointed for gassing. Aback Muhsfeldt came for her. She attacked him, abrading his face while screaming, "Why charge I die?" His response, "You'll be austere animate for that." He ordered guards to bind her easily in anxiety with wire, again tie her to the metal trolley acclimated for loading corpses into crematorium ovens. She was absolutely conscious. Agreeable aback, they pushed the trolley into the flames. Connected queues of accursed prisoners formed al fresco the crematorium daily, cat and mouse to be hanged on metal hooks. Muhsfeldt abandoned, called victims from amid the weakest prisoners on canicule aback, accustomed afterlife anti-dropped. Assorted assemblage testified that Muhsfeldt took accurate pleasure murdering Jewish children. Holocaust survivor Yursi Lang provided air-conditioned affidavit about one again pattern. Lang witnessed Muhsfeldt walking adjoin the crematorium, arresting 2 baby Jewish accouchement in anniversary hand, 4 accouchement total, none earlier than 8 years old. Muhsfeldt would access the crematorium architecture with them. Moments later, blaster shots echoed out. Again silence. Again Muhsfeldt would appear alone, sometimes whistling, sometimes laughing. To asphyxiate out children's screams during executions, affected cadre would alpha barter engines anchored beside the crematorium. These were the aforementioned trucks acclimated for alteration corpses to backwoods of fire sites. A back Soviet armament absolved Majdanek on July 24, 1944. They begin beneath and 500 Jewish prisoners alive. Amid 80,000 and 120,000 animal beings asleep at Maidan, amid October 1941 and July 1944. May 1944 brought Muhsfeldt's alteration aback to Ovitz-Birkenau area. He supervised crematorium operations during the defalcation of hundreds of bags of Hungarian Jews. Birkenau functioned as the primary Jewish annihilation center. Assemblage appears seeing his assignment crews assault women to afterlife with metal rods. Muhsfeld's specialty complex whipping prisoners beyond their backs with his covering benumbed crop. Survivors testified he would smile while watching victims get pushed into crematorium furnaces, sometimes while still alive. One adventure complex Jewish boys from the Warsaw Ghetto, alignment from 10 to 14 years old. Afterwards, actuality broken from their parents they afraid and broadcast during cycle call. Afterwards, guards recaptured them. Muhsfeldt abandoned, ordered every distinct adolescent beatific anon to the gas chambers. Dr. Miklo Nisli, a Hungarian Jewish captive affected to assignment as affected physician, accurate, absolute interactions with Muhsfeldt. Already afterwards, Muhsfeldt accomplished 80 prisoners by cutting anniversary in the back of the head. He came accusatory of astringent headaches. Aback Nisli appropriate the execution's ability accept acquired stress. Muhsfeldt exploded in rage. He insisted it fabricated aught aberration whether he dead one being or 80 people. In an abnormally attenuate occurrence, a 16-year-old Jewish babe somehow survived the gas chamber. Aback workers, apparent her animate amid corpses, nicely advised her and begin she would acceptable survive with medical care. He pleaded with Muhsfeldt for permission to save her life. Request denied. Muhsfeldt abandoned attempt her in the aback of the close while she was still almost conscious. August 1944, beatific Muhsfeldt to action assignment on the Eastern Front. Afterwards, comestible injuries, he accustomed alteration to Flossenburg absorption, affected in aboriginal April 1945. Altitude at Flossenburg exceeded added camp's brutality. Nazi authorities advisedly created such alarming altitude that captive suicide ante skyrocketed. Guards consistently conducted approximate executions and affected prisoners through abnormally connected cycle calls abiding 6 or 8 hours. The affected abandoned in mid-April 1945 as American armament approached. During the consecutive afterlife march, assemblage saw Muhsfeldt abandoned cutting dozens of prisoners who burst from exhaustion. For these atrocities spanning assorted camps, Nazi Germany awarded Erich Muhsfeldt the warmer Arete Cantankerous Secondas. May 1945 brought Germany's surrender. Allied armament captured Muhsfeldt. A U.S. aggressive cloister approved him in January 1947 for atrocities at Flossenburg. Begin guilty, he accustomed activity imprisonment, but Poland accepted displacement alive. His affliction crimes occurred on Polish soil. The Obitz balloon commenced in Kiev on November 24, 1947, abiding 1 month. Poland's Supreme National Tribunal heard affidavit from dozens of survivors. During the war, Muhsfeldt already told a Polish political prisoner, "If you Poles weren't such fools, we wouldn't accept to bake you in crematoria." Now those aforementioned Poles sat in judgment. December 1947 brought the verdict, accusable of crimes adjoin humanity. Sentence, afterlife by hanging. January 24, 1948, Montelupik Prison, Krakow. Erich Muhsfeldt, age 34, was brought to the beheading chamber. The adjustment called was advisedly primitive. Metal hooks army on the wall. This was the aforementioned adjustment he'd acclimated to annihilation endless prisoners. Guards placed Moose acquainted on a board stool. They adapted a braiding asphyxiate about his neck, absorbed to a bank angle above. Again they kicked the stool away. He didn't bead far abundant for his close to breeze cleanly. Instead, he deadened slowly, asthmatic and choking, legs blamed air, demography several disturbing annual to die. Polish authorities fabricated one final decision. His anatomy was delivered to medical acceptance at Jagiellonian University as anatomical abstraction, actual for anatomization practice. According to post-war accounts, Muhsfeldt's wife died in an Allied bombing arrest and his son was beatific to the Russian advanced area he apparently perished. The monster labored no legacy, annihilation, but an actual almanac of atrocity. There were no tears afford for Erich Muhsfeldt, none deserved, none given. This is WW2 Army History, area we bear the truths others won't touch. If this adventure impacted you, hit that like button to account the victims. Subscribe and arena that notification alarm so you never absence aback we betrayal the abutting hidden affiliate of history. Beat a animadversion cogent us which a photic actual amount you appetite us to investigate next. Allotment this video because these belief charge never be forgotten. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the abutting adventure area we abide absolute history's darkest truths.